Good morning. Today we're going to look at John chapter 18, um, combining yesterday and today's readings. And tomorrow and Wednesday we'll look at chapter 19, which is the hardest, one of the hardest chapters of the Bible to read. Although chapter 18 isn't so great either. Um, at the end of chapter 17, Jesus had finished praying, and chapter 18 begins with him going out to a garden, the Garden of Gethsemane, with 11 disciples in tow, because Judas had gone to betray him. And it says, verse 3, Judas brought a detachment of soldiers together with police from the chief priests and the Pharisees. And they came with lanterns, torches, and weapons to arrest Jesus at night. Of course, it's at nighttime, but so John's gospel has Roman soldiers and the temple police, and I kind of always chuckle a little bit at the temple police. I don't understand, what exactly they did, but I'm glad we don't have police in our worship centers today, and maybe some of the large cathedrals, or maybe they do. I don't know. They probably have security people in some of those places, but it's just one of those kind of strange deals, thinking that, we need to have police that are employed by the synagogues. But regardless, they come to arrest Jesus, and Jesus knows they're coming. It says verse 4, Jesus, knowing all that was to happen, came forward and asked, whom are you searching for? And they say, Jesus of Nazareth. And he says, I am he. And what happens? But they fall to their knees. And it's, when Jesus said to them, I am he, they stepped back and fell to the ground. So is this the temple police, the Roman soldiers, or all of them? They knew in a way who Jesus was, and rightly they honored him in this manner. But yet they were there to do a job. And Jesus asks the second time, whom are you looking for? And they say, Jesus of Nazareth. And he again responds, I am he. If you're looking for me, here I am. Arrest me and let these others go. And in everything that's going on, Peter just, he pulls a sword out. They had, I think, 2 swords we can read in different places, but pulls a sword and he cuts the right ear off of the high priest's head, So he's striking from behind, just figuring everything out that way. But Jesus says, no, put the sword away. This isn't the time to fight. This is the time to let the glory of God happen. And so the soldiers, it says, verse 12, the soldiers, their officers, and the Jewish police arrest Jesus and bound him. And they took him to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was the high priest. And, all of the uproar about Jesus had really elevated after the raising of Lazarus from the dead back in chapter 11. And it was toward the end of chapter 11, or maybe the last verse of chapter 11, that Caiaphas, the high priest we hear about now, had made the comment, it's better for one person to die than for the whole Jewish nation to be destroyed. He was, they were out looking, how do we get rid of this guy? He's causing an uproar, and we can't have that. But, so in a way, Caiaphas had already kind of made up his mind, a few chapters ago after the resurrection of Lazarus, which wasn't an awful long time before Jesus' arrest and everything here either. But they arrest him and take him to the temple. And Peter and John, the disciple who's writing this book, are following. And it says, John tells us that he is known by the guards, so they let him in, but then he goes back to speak on Peter's behalf. And Peter comes in as well, and it tells us it's night, it's cold, and there's a fire going just because it's cold. And, it's kind of nice to sit around a warm fire on a cold night. And it was there that 3 times in this chapter, Peter denies knowing Jesus to fulfill what Jesus had told Peter back in chapter 13. before the cock crows, you'll deny me 3 times. And, Peter's profession of, you are the Christ, the Messiah, and I will die with you. I mean, it's just a reminder for us that, no matter how much our good intentions are, when push comes to shove, will we be faithful? And it's a hard question, and I think about that. If I was under the threat of arrest, persecution, death for my belief in Jesus Christ, how strong would I be? This is hard. It's, we'd like to say, man, I'm going to be right there with him. But, it's, Thomas's statement when they were going to go to Jerusalem, if he's going to go there and die, there's no better place to be, and Peter too. Their profession was, or the profession of their faith, of their intent was good, but it's just, it's humbling to think about, how strong is my faith? Would I be able to face arrest, persecution, death for my belief? And possibly, if it was to come push to shove, we might not have any choice. If someone turned us in for being believers and we were arrested, it probably wouldn't make any difference, that way, because we had already been convicted by someone that way. But, it's just to think about Peter's denial and to think about the shame and the guilt that he felt, when, after that 3rd time and the cock crows, it tells us he went out and wept bitterly, it's just, and rightly so, it's just, it's just, the reality is so harsh. But in the Gospels, we learn this, and we know that Peter is restored, later by Jesus. We'll read that in a few days as well. But right now, this is hard stuff, and so they've taken Jesus first to Annas, the father-in-law of the high priest. And Annas had been high priest, but now, his position wasn't that, but Caiaphas was the high priest. So he's first to Annas, and then bound, they take him to Caiaphas. But in this first questioning in front of Annas, Annas asks, the question about his teaching, and Jesus' response, I have always spoken openly, spoken in the temple, I've taught every day, what have I done wrong? And one of the soldiers strikes Jesus because, you mouthed off to the high priest. That's not the way you speak to the high priest. And, I just can't read Jesus' words in a manner that would cause this retribution by this soldier. But Jesus, says, if I've spoken wrongly and testified to the wrong, why do you strike me? Why do you argue with what is truth, But anyway, they take him then to Caiaphas, and they take him bound from Caiaphas headquarters to Pilate. And this is early in the morning now. He's been on trial all night, which is against Jewish law to have a trial during the night, that things are hidden in the night, and that's kind of what they were doing. They were hiding a little bit of what they were doing. But Pilate doesn't know what's going on either. And the religious leaders, don't really want to go all the way into the temple because they don't want to compromise themselves. They want to be able to attend the Passover festival and do all of the religious rituals and stuff, while they are clean, And I'm thinking, man, you're crucifying the Lord. How can you be clean? But Pilate tries to let Jesus go. We know that. And, he asks the question, well, why are you bringing him to me? And their answer, because we don't have authority to sentence someone to death. Here, boom, right now they said it. We want him dead. We don't have that authority. So we need you, the Roman official, to authorize this for us. And, we know what happens, and Pilate talks to Jesus, and Pilate asks, what is truth? And he comes out, he's figured out the truth. He says, I find no guilt in this man. Can I release him for you? No, they cry. They want Barabbas. Sad, sad story, but it's a part of our salvation, which is of utmost importance, our salvation.